Hey, and welcome to Unlearning Stress, the podcast where we break the rules and cycles that keep you overcommitted, overstretched, and just plain exhausted, and replace them with something better. No fluff, no guilt, just real talk, real solutions, and expert insights to help you shift the way you live. Whether you're here for the first time or you've been with me for a while, you're in the right place. I'm Mischelle O'Neal, your resident emotional wellness coach, and I'm here to help you unlearn the patterns that are wearing you down so you can live with more ease, clarity, and control. Let's get to it. Hey, if you've been with me the last couple of weeks, you already know we've been inside a much deeper conversation, one that started with a fracture. And what a fracture is, I want to remind you, is a contradiction between what you believe and think and say and what you actually do. And so it started with that. And I think a lot of us actually carried the pressure to sustain, the pressure to keep doing what we're doing, to remain in excellence, and not just to succeed, but to keep succeeding, to keep showing up, to keep leading, to keep being the one who handles it all. And last week, we opened that up in both the podcast and the article. And the response from you told me that we hit something. Because for so many high capacity women, that question, can I keep this up, isn't hypothetical. It's real. It's daily. It's heavy. And so this week, we're going deeper, not into the second article just yet, because I told you there's a second article, but into a piece of this journey that you may be feeling in your body right now, even if you haven't named what it is, because that slow drain that you feel, that dull sense of heaviness, that resistance to even the things that used to light you up, that's not laziness. That's not a sign that you're off track. And no, it doesn't mean that you're failing. What it does mean is that you may be out of sync, not with your values, not with your purpose, but with your current rhythm, your current design, your current truth. See, most of us were taught that if we want to make something last, we just have to keep grinding, keep at it, keep going, keep doing what worked, keep pushing forward. But in reality, that's not sustainable. That's actually survival. You're just getting through. You're just making it. And eventually, even the strongest woman will burn out if she doesn't stop to check. Is what I'm building still in alignment with who I am right now? So this episode isn't about giving up. It's about being honest. It's about permission to shift without shame, to recalibrate without apology, to do this next season differently so that you don't lose you in the process. So let's start right there. Let's start with the signs that your soul might already be giving you, not to quit, but to pause and to pivot. So let's talk about what this actually feels like, okay? Because it's not always obvious at first. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly say, oh, I'm out of alignment. Nah, it sneaks up on you. It shows up as, well, fatigue, but not just tired in your body type fatigue. It is so tired. The kind of tired that doesn't go away after a good night's sleep. You're doing all the things. You're still showing up, but inside, you feel like you're going through the motions, detached, distant, disconnected from the joy that you used to feel. Like you're playing out a role in a story that, well, it doesn't fit anymore. And you start asking yourself, why am I even doing this? But you don't say it out loud because you've already invested too much in this, too much time, too much energy, too much identity, and even sometimes too much money. And let's be honest, you don't want to look inconsistent. You don't want to admit that the passion that you once had has faded, or that your excitement feels like a memory instead of being current. So instead, what do? You overfunction. You try harder. You force yourself to care. You post, you serve, you lead, you give, but inside you're running on fumes. And what makes it even harder is that you don't even know where to look for relief. You're doing everything that they told you to do. Look, you're journaling, you're praying, you're reading the books, listening to the podcast, even asking AI for answers. You've talked to your friends, you've searched your own heart, and still nothing. And that nothing, that's what makes it feel so defeating. Because you're usually the one with the answers. You're the one people turn to when they don't know what to do. But who have you got to turn to? So what happens when you don't know? That's when the guilt sets in. Because you've been so excellent about everything for so long. And it feels like anything less than your best is a personal failure. But let me tell you right here, right now, this isn't about failure. This is your nervous system raising its hand. Hello? This is your spirit trying to get your attention, not to quit, but to shift, to reset, to ask, is the way I've been working still working for who I am now? You're not being dramatic. You're not being lazy. You're being called into recalibration and recognizing that is not a weakness. Look, it's wisdom. Let's tell the truth here. Most of us were taught that sustainability means just one thing. Keep going, no matter what. Push through, get her done, power through the fatigue, the doubt, and the emotional drag. But real sustainability, it's not about endurance. It's about alignment. And I know you hear a lot about that word. It's not just, can I keep doing this? It's, can I keep doing this and still feel like myself? And alignment is when your values, your beliefs, your purpose, who you are, all align together. Because here's the thing, you can keep producing, you can keep showing up, you can keep delivering results. But if you're doing all that with your joy shut off, with your creativity on mute, with your peace drained and your spirit parched, that's not sustainable. That, my friend, is just performance. And you weren't created to live your life on stage. You want to know what sustainability really looks like? Do you? It looks like being honest. That knocked you for a loop, didn't it? Honest about where you are right now. Honest about what's still true for you right now, today. Honest about the way your capacity shifts in different seasons. And it looks like pulling your identity back from what you produce and anchoring it in who you are. You know, have you ever heard that saying that you're not what you do, but who you are? And that's what makes you come alive. And listen, that kind of sustainability isn't taught in business schools. It's not in the 5-point plan or productivity books. It's something you have to unlearn your way into, because we've been taught to strive for excellence, right? But somewhere along the way, we've replaced excellence with perfection. Yeah, I said the P word. And now we're suffocating under a standard that we never agreed to. You never want it to be perfect. Trying to be everything to everybody. That's not what you signed up for. Not while losing yourself in the process. So let me say this out loud. For both of us, you and me, you don't owe anyone a version of you that's not sustainable. You don't owe anyone a version of you that's unsustainable. You don't owe them a version of you that's functioning, but not flourishing. That's not where you want to be. You get to choose again. You get to recalibrate. You get to define what sustainable looks like for your life, your calling, and your capacity. That's the shift, not quitting, recalibrating. And here's where it gets messy, because this isn't about energy or alignment anymore. This is about identity. We don't just strive for excellence. We tie our identity to it. We tell ourselves, if I'm not performing, if I'm not producing, if I'm not solving the problem, staying ahead, having the answers, then who am I? What do I have to offer? And I get it. That identity, the one who always comes through, has gotten you through so much. It made you dependable. It made you strong. It got you in the rooms you used to dream about being in. But now, that same identity is choking you, because every time you feel tired, you push harder. Every time something doesn't click, you grind more. Every time someone praises your excellence, you add one more expectation to the weight that you're already buckling under. And let me tell you what that weight does. It fractures your joy, breaks it apart. It warps your creativity. It makes rest feel like guilt. It turns presence into performance. And the worst part, it isolates you. Because when you're that girl, you don't get to say, I don't know. You don't get to say, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. So instead, what do? You pretend. You overcompensate. You push through the exhaustion. You mask the confusion. You smile while suffocating. So, look, let's stop here for a moment, right here. You were never meant to carry that burden, to carry a life that only feels good when you're performing at your highest level. That's not even humanly possible. So you're setting yourself up for failure. You were never meant to anchor your identity in applause or metrics or accolades. Excellence, don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. But when it becomes the condition of your worth, Honey, that's no longer excellence. It's imprisonment. So here's your challenge. Start noticing where performance is masquerading as purpose. Start asking yourself, would I still do this if no one was watching? Would I still want this if it didn't prove anything to anyone? Because if the answer is no, it's not sustainability. We're back to that other S word. It's just surviving. So let me say something you may not have heard in a while. You don't need a reset because something's wrong with you. You need a reset because something has gotten out of sync. That's it. You're not damaged. You're not failing. You're just out of sync. And you're like, what's out of sync? That's the version of success that you're chasing and the version of your life that actually feels like yours. Somewhere along the way, success stopped meaning fulfillment and started meaning maintenance. Maintenance of a status, maintenance of an income, maintenance of people's expectations. And you got lost in the upkeep. So let's be real. You don't need another certificate. I'm sure you've gotten enough. You don't need another 10-step strategy. And you don't need another morning routine to fix what clarity can solve. What you need is a reset. Not the kind that blows everything up. The kind that recalibrates. The kind where you ask, well, what do I actually want to feel every day? It's a hard question to answer. What does enough look like for me? Not my industry, not my friends, not my followers, but for me. And what am I building that's still aligned with me and my desires and who I am and what I believe? And what am I dragging that's already expired? Because here's the thing. Real sustainability doesn't come from pushing through. It comes from pulling back just enough to remember who you are. It comes from permission, and I know you hear that word a lot. But permission to pause, to shift. Get this, to reimagine. Look, you don't have to quit, but you do have to be honest. Because if the only way to keep going is to pretend that you're okay, you're not building sustainability. You're building a prison with really pretty wallpaper. So take the time to pause and revisit that dream. Redefine the definition. Reclaim the rhythm. You don't need to burn it down. That's not what I'm asking you to do. You just need to build from truth. Take a breath. Look, you've heard a lot in this episode. And if you're feeling like you've just exhaled for the first time in days, good. That means we hit something real. That means you're not alone. So let's land this plane together. You're not afraid of hard work. You never have been. What you're afraid of, what most high capacity women never name out loud, is that succeeding is something that no longer feels true. At least the definition of succeeding that you had. And that's what drains you, not the work, the pretending. We've talked about how exhaustion isn't always about effort. It's often about misalignment, about holding up an image, an expectation, a life that no longer reflects who you are or how you want to live. We've talked about sustainability, not just as stamina, but as a soul alignment. That real sustainability requires desire, not just discipline. And we've exposed how the pressure to stay excellent, impressive, needed, and on top of things can slowly silence the part of you that just wants to feel whole. So what now? We're back to the P word. You pause. You tell the truth. You recalibrate, not because you fail, but because you finally love yourself. You love yourself enough not to keep performing, but to take your definition of success off of autopilot. And you build again with clarity. You show up differently, not smaller, not quieter, but truer. Because this isn't the end, girlfriend. This is a shift. This is the moment you stop asking, can I keep this up? And start asking, do I want to? This is your permission. You don't have to hold the weight of it all. You don't have to prove anything. You're already enough. And from here, you build a life that feels like yours again. So listen, if this episode held a mirror to something that you've been afraid to say out loud, if you found yourself whispering under your breath, that's me, then I want to invite you to come sit with me. Not to perform, not to push through, but to process. This week's live is your space to come in and land. Because for so many of us, the thing we build with so much pride started asking for more than we could keep giving. This live isn't about burning it all down. It's about finding your way back to truth. It's about exiting the performance loop without losing your purpose. So I want you to meet me there. I want you to be ready to have a conversation. But most importantly, bring your honesty. And let's walk this out together. You've done so much. You've held so much. And you've succeeded in ways most people don't even see. But somewhere in that excellence, you started asking yourself a question that you couldn't say out loud. What if I can't keep this up? And maybe even deeper than that, do I even want to? Look, that's not weakness. That's honesty. And it's your first sign that something in your life, your schedule, your pace, or your expectations may be out of sync with your truth. You're not lazy. You're not behind. You're just misaligned. And I want to walk you through what it looks like to recalibrate when you don't even know what's off. We're doing a live conversation about how to recalibrate when you don't know what's off. And it's for women who've been asking, why do I feel this way? Why am I so tired? Why don't I love this like I used to? And if that's you, meet me there. We'll slow down. We'll breathe and gently interrupt that fog together. Because I want you to know without a shadow of a doubt that clarity is possible. But first, you need to come home to the reality of who you are with clarity. Until next time, I am honored that you were with me here today because this is so important. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye. If this episode hits home, don't just push it aside. Lean into it. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And connect with me on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Substack, where we go even deeper. Links will be in the comments. And if you're ready to start unlearning the patterns that keep you stuck, keep listening because real change happens one choice at a time. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.